Hello there, everybody. Welcome once again to EFL Debate, another episode of the Championship podcast. I'm delighted to be joined, as always, by my regular co-host, Oli Mann from Sheff United Way. Great to have you on again, Oli.
No, fantastic to be here. I always enjoy doing this one, being able to catch up a little bit on the Championship. Bit warm for me today. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to look sweaty. I apologise, but what can you do with this heat?
Absolutely, yeah. It's almost too hot, the classic British expression. Delighted to also be joined by Matt Lax from the excellent New York Talk podcast on Rotherham United. Matt, I imagine you're in great spirits after that victory over Norwich last weekend.
Absolutely, yeah, positive. Finally got a bit of a reward for the hard work that the players put in over the first about 5 games now, and huge surge of positives from everybody at the club at the minute. It's great.
Sure. I suppose I wanted to go into a bit of a technical detail with the game against Rotherham, and I noticed that Cafu, who I thought was brought in to be a sort of sitting midfielder, he was actually pressing on occasions in that first half where you really pinned Norwich back, a bit like a second striker almost, and which kind of surprised me a bit because I would have thought Oli Rathbone would have done that role because he's a bit of a pressing monster as well. So just talk us through the makeup of the midfield at the moment.
Yeah, I think initially he did play a bit deeper, Cafu, but then when Tiahi's come in, that's his role. His role is to sit and screen the defence, pick up any loose balls and whatnot. And it's just allowed Cafu a bit more freedom to push for. I think, to be honest with you, Cafu just whatever he wants. I think that's the role. Tiahi will mop up any danger, and Rathbone will just do all the running that he's needed. Cafu's so good on the ball. He just sees the game differently to anybody else in the team. He's just got that X factor. It doesn't always work out. You know, he's going to make a mistake. It's probably going to cost us a goal or two this season with a few decision-making issues, but he'll make us more than he concedes. I think Cafu's got more of a free role, and especially with Duffin. When a Duffin play, he is closer to Hugo, so I think he was filling that role as well while he's that injured.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, even with a Duffin injured, Matt, you've got that midfield trio with Tiahi, Cafu and Oli Rathbone. I think that's probably one of the one of the few areas, should we say, if possibly the only, apart from Johansson maybe, and one or two of the defenders, where you'd say Rotherham really can sort of match the opposition pound for pound. Is that the area that gives you your best chance of staying up if those three players click and stay fit simultaneously?
I think so, yeah. I mean, like I said, Duffin's due back after the international break. You got Jamie Lindsay to come back in as probably a bit part player, to be fair. I don't think Lindsay will start with that midfield three, assuming likes of the fit. But there's a bit of depth in that midfield. And they're really exciting to watch. Oli Rathbone's an 8 or 9 out of 10 every week. He's just Mr. Reliable. We're starting to sort of get Ty fit a little bit, and he's really cool on the ball. Later on in the game against Norwich, when we were sort of coming a bit of pressure, I was just begging for him to get on the ball just for a minute, and he just calms everything down. He's just so cool. I think we're playing him in a similar position to Barlaser, but he's a completely different player. He's more like Connor Coventry was for us post January.
Right.
But it's no surprise that Tiahi and Cafu were two of the players that were earmarked straight away. Matt Taylor talked about as soon as we knew we were staying up, those are the guys we want. And I think if you've got a strong midfield, you're going to be pretty good defensively. It's going to protect your defence, but it's also going to help the attack as well. So makes a lot of sense, really, that he's gone for those guys. And they've settled him almost straight away as well, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Oli, as someone who's familiar with relegation battles.
Low blow, that's a low blow.
Do him a favour, you come and help out. Wow.
I suppose it is going to be important for Rotherham to have those sort of 3 or 4 players who have got that kind of muscle memory of having played well in the Championship before. How important is that going to be for the Millers?
Absolutely massive for me. I think it's one of those where, Rotherham, we have this conversation every time they're in the Championship, really, and it's always a similar one. We talked about it when we were discussing Rotherham on this show only a couple of weeks ago, I think, where it's that question of, on quality terms, in terms of budget, in terms of lots of things that come with trying to be competitive in the Championship, Rotherham are below other teams. And, I think that is something that Rotherham fans generally accept. Do tell me if I'm wrong, Matt. But I think for me, what makes this Rotherham different, and I thought it last year, and I think it this year, is they have got sprinklings of players who have got this now experience of having been good and high level performers at this level. And I think that makes such a huge difference because that confidence emanates off those players. It runs through the rest of the team and it elevates it. You know, you made a joke, obviously, at the start about United, but it's true in that United, if I take us under Wilder, for example, we'd got players who had so much confidence that they inspired the rest of the team to be better than the sum of their parts. And that makes a huge difference. And when you look at the relegation battle in the Championship and some of the other teams that are going to be in and around it, I question, will they have the players who can give you that confidence running through them? Or are they going to get bogged down in the relegation battle? Whereas I think Rotherham know what they're in for and have actually recruited really sensibly to improve areas that they needed to bring in. I think Nombe is going to be really exciting. How he sort of fits into the club, I think he's going to be really interesting because obviously he's a very different sort of striker and attacker to a few of the others have been using in recent years. So yeah, I feel as though there is reasons to be quite positive for Rotherham at the minute. And I didn't think I was going to be saying that if you'd asked me 5 weeks ago. So that hopefully gives you some reassurances, Matt.
Absolutely. Always look for reassurances.
What do you think about Nombe's role? Was going to be one of my questions. Obviously, he came on. Was he on the right when he came on because he came in to replace Green, or did you sort of shift system a little bit once he come in? How do you see him sort of playing going forward? Is it off Hugill?
It's going to be really interesting because when he came on, he then switched to basically a 4-4-2, having initially been a 4-3. It was 4-3-3 with Green and Oli Mann with Hugill, and he went to a 2 with Hugill up there. But 4-4-2 or 2 up top doesn't really suit us. It needs to be a 3. Especially with Oli Mann in there, has been brilliant. Andre Green, who can play as a striker, but I think is better out wide. Yeah. So I don't know. To be honest, it's really interesting. Is he going to use him as one of the 3 prongs? Because I think Nombe has got that mobility to do one of those 3 roles. But Hugill was sensational Saturday. Hugill, best game of the season on Saturday. So then, is it just competition for places? Because if Hugill turns up, that's a great striker to have. Yeah. He's got a great problem to have. He's got,
by the way, Hugill loves scoring against former clubs, doesn't he? He just
that's what he does. Thankfully for us, he's played for a lot of them, so that helps.
Yeah. You totted up. You want to get that list of can we play West Ham if they come into the Championship? Yeah, Middlesbrough, Preston North End. So I wanted to, we mentioned Andre Green there, Matt, and what interested me as well watching the highlights was there was one moment where he actually went over to the left, even though he started on the right, and sort of linked up with Onyedinma. Do you think that's a passage of play that we've seen from Matt Taylor, kind of coaching to these players? Because I believe that's the kind of thing he used to do at Exeter.
Yeah, definitely. Onyedinma's constantly floating, constantly just we want out right hand side a minute, helping Green. Because it started on Saturday, or it has started with Green on the right and Onyedinma on the left. It's generally how it started, but then they just seem to flow quite well. Not convinced on Onyedinma's defensive responsibility. I think he's left Cohen Bramwell high and dry a few times, which has caused Cohen Bramwell to get a lot of stick.
But Bramwell's quick, though, isn't he? He should be able to cope with those one-on-one situations.
He can for the most part, but when he's getting 2'd up at times, he's getting 2-on-1s quite a lot. Sometimes. So Cohen Bramwell does need help, but for how good Onyedinma has been going forward, you've got to sort of let it go a little bit. You've got to accept that that's going to happen. You can't win every battle, I suppose. And Bramwell's pace does get him out of trouble quite a lot, to be honest with you.
It's interesting actually hearing you say that, Matt, because I remember talking to an Exeter fan about Matt Taylor's style, and I think when he played with the back four, his general principle was you get your defensive solidity from your fullbacks, and then you're quite happy to let the wide forwards kind of float inside a little bit, and that seems to be the kind of the way that he's going with Rotherham. And I suppose while we're on Matt Taylor, Matt, what are you making it? Get my words out properly. What have you made of his work so far this season?
It's difficult because you've got to try and keep level-headed because ignoring the Stoke game, because that was the first 45 minutes killed us and the game was done. So ignoring that first 45 minutes and the League Cup game at Stoke, it's been a really, really good start. We had 50 minutes against Blackburn. Had we not gone down to 10 men, we'd have won that game. I'm certain of that because we were so good. We pushed Leicester to the 70th minute until they started bringing the subs on, which we didn't have the strength in depth to change. That took the game. It was only a 2-1 defeat. Up until Doffin got injured at Sunderland, we were brilliant. And that substitution sort of killed us. And Saturday was what sort of game you sort of, this is it. This is the blueprint. This is what we're trying to get at. Because that first 45 minutes against Norwich, they didn't know what hit them. They just couldn't deal with what we were trying to do. And that's the team who will come into the game high. This wasn't a team that was like
Norwich was really good. Yeah,
exactly. So I've got trying to remain calm because it's only 4 points. That's the thing; it's only 4 points on the board. But if this is what Matt Tiller's trying to do, this is it. This is what we want as a football player. It's a really progressive style. It's proactive. It's not bringing on a centre half for a striker 2-1 down with 30 minutes left, like we've seen in the past. He'll bring Nombe on and just tweak the system, and he's trying to make sure the opposition always have something to think about. And I think that's what will keep us in games. And it's what won us the game against Norwich. We didn't sit back and just accept they're going to have a go. We really tried to keep the pressure on them. It's working. We're unlucky not to have 7 points on the board. We're really unlucky not to have that. And that would be a great start. Look, with that put you on the table, that would be a sensational start. So we're really happy. We're really positive. We've got the fixtures have been difficult. You look at the 5 we've played. That's a difficult first 5. We've got Huddersfield and Preston on. The start with Millwall coming up. The fixtures break a little bit for us. A little bit. It's championships. So it's never going to be easy. But a little bit for us. So maybe, hopefully, start racking up those points. And you measure again international break. International breaks are a good measuring point.
Yeah.
The next one, whenever that is, I think will hopefully be in a really boring position.
I think for me it's interesting because obviously we're hearing lots of positives now. I've said that I'm quite buoyed by the start of Rotherham. I think they've done well. You yourself there have talked about how well they've done through this quite difficult run of games. Potentially could have 7 points, which would have been a fantastic return from them. But as you look at the league, and obviously it's way too early to draw real narratives from what the league looks like. But looking at it, and Swansea and Middlesbrough have had terrible starts, really, in terms of what they were looking to do. They would expect to have started better. But beyond that, obviously, you're then looking at yourselves, Wednesday, Huddersfield, the sort of teams that people were naming. Do you think that going forwards, who are the 3 you're looking at as being your direct competition down there? Because I think, and do correct me if you think I'm completely misrepresenting where Rotherham are at. For me, it's still going to be a relegation battle, even though there are really positive signs. And so I'm interested in what your target is. So which teams do you target as saying, actually, like, for example, QPR have started better than we expected, but are they still a team that you're looking at and saying they're one that we've got to be above come the end of the season? Where are you at in terms of that kind of battle long term?
I think, you think you're right. Well, survival is where we want to. I think all Rotherham fans would just take survival. I think the start has got us excited that we can maybe push forward, but you're right. You've got to stay level. You've got to stay realistic. Sheff United are the obvious one because their start's been horrific, but it will probably turn around a little bit. Teams that start that bad for some reason don't tend to stay that bad. On the championship, it's really odd. Huddersfield will struggle. I'm not impressed with their transfer. I know they bought Ben Wiles from us. I'm not sure that's the kind of player to bring in to push you on. He's a bit of a gamble.
Well, it's weird with Ben Wiles as well, Matt, because I feel like they got him when his stock. I'm not sure Ben Wiles' stock is as high as it was maybe 2 years ago.
No,
definitely. So
not. He's got a lot of questions. There were 2 years ago. You're right. There were a couple of questions. Can he do this? Can he do that? We haven't got the answers yet, and we're 2 years down the line. So for us to get $1 million plus is actually a really, really good deal. Don't get me wrong. I hope he does really well next season. After but I hope he has a good career. I'm hoping more than expecting. Is a shame. I'm not convinced on Cardiff, to be honest with you. QPR another one. Plymouth have had a great start. Can they keep that up? It's how many teams have a great start when they come up and then drop off in October, November time when things start to turn.
When the novelty factor kind of goes a bit.
Yeah, exactly. When that novelty and that excitement dies off a little bit and it becomes a normal game against a normal championship team, are they going to be able to keep that intensity up? And I don't know. Middlesbrough won't be down there. We know that. They always start rubbish. The last season they were in a similar position, weren't they? And they ended up in playoffs. So
I think we can write them off as far as I'm concerned. Matt, I've got a couple more questions for you. I suppose that performance against Norwich was sort of the blueprint where this is what Rotherham can do at their best, especially that first half. I suppose when you're not at your best, you're going to want Victor Johansson to bail you out like he did a few times last season. What's his form been like so far this season?
It's been solid. It's not been spectacular. To be fair, again, other than the Stoke game, he's not had great stuff to do. The goals were conceded. He maybe could have stopped the first one at Sunderland, but it was a point. Like, would have been one of those you talk about as being a great save. But bearing in mind the standards he puts on himself, I'm sure he would have been disappointed. On Saturday, what was key for him is that in injury time, he came out and cleared the ball. Well, caught the ball 3 or 4 times in injury time. The ball went into the box and it's sort of around the penalty spot, and he just came out and got it, and it just took the pressure off. And I think that's one of the things he's maybe struggled with is commanding of his area and catching the ball. He's a pretty good puncher, but it just killed the pressure. It killed Norwich, and I think that's a step forward in terms of maybe working with Scott Brown, the goalkeeper coach. Maybe that's a step forward there. They're trying to get him to something to do, especially at that stage in the game. It's the time of his career to start working on game management. It's difficult for a goalkeeper to manage a game, obviously, but that is a type of game management from him that I'm excited to see. But the saves are still there. There's 1 or 2 great saves. I can't remember who it was against Leicester, I think, but the saves are still there, thankfully. It wasn't a flash in the pan, thankfully.
Yeah, and you can kind of because of the amount of individual quality Leicester have got. I mean, is it 9 figures worth of quality in their squad? I mean, I think you did incredibly well to sort of give them as good a game as you did. I suppose squad depth is probably the question when it comes to Rotherham, and for me, what's really important, Matt, is as much as we've talked about some of those players that you're confident in, I also feel like it's going to be really important that there's players that you maybe had a question mark over or an asterisk over before the start of the season that just completely prove everyone wrong. And the likes of Green, I wouldn't necessarily have expected huge things from, but he started well. Hakeem Adofin, before he became unavailable, I thought actually started surprisingly well, and probably Tyler Blackett as well. You've obviously got Kieran McGuckin coming into the squad as well, which was a big step up from, was it Scarborough last season? Are they the ones we're looking at where you want a couple of those to have a really big season?
They absolutely are. I think McGuckin will be a bit part. If he stays, the National League window's still open, so it could go on loan to National League. I'd like to see McGuckin get some minutes. There's a player in there. He might get 10, 15 minutes every 2 or 3 weeks. So if he can go get minutes, that would be exciting for me.
Northern Ireland prospect as well, isn't he? Under 19s, I want to say.
He's under 21s. He's going to be with the under 21s at the minute, which again is a good experience for him. He's only 19. He's essentially playing up a level, which is how highly they rate him. I mean, Tyler Blackett's another one you mentioned. He's been great this season. 5 games in. When we all signed him in March, so we didn't see a proper Tyler Blackett, and you sort of get told
better than Cam Humphreys, do you reckon?
Different player, very different. I think Tyler Blackett's got that experience, and he's a bit of a leader on the pitch. He told Victor off 2 or 3 times for his kicking on Saturday, and when Sean Morrison's not on the pitch, you need that in defence to maybe marshal. His experiences surprised me, to be honest with you. I was expecting a bit of a guy who's a bit too lazy on the ball and things such as that. He hasn't made any mistakes. He hasn't looked like making any mistakes. And him and Humphreys are linking up really, really well at the minute, which is a surprise. We were expecting Sean Morrison every week. I think everybody probably was because of the experience he's got. Well, Blackett and Humphreys have really linked together really, really well. People, you mentioned a question about Colin Bramwell's another one. This is a big season for Bramwell. If he can get his defensive responsibilities sorted with his pace, the sky's the limit for that kid. But he's got question marks over defensive issues, which have come into question already this season. But certainly that's an issue. It is a big issue. And it looks worse at the minute because of the injuries we've got. You've got Adofin out, Lindsay out, Georgia Kelly's out, Peltier's out for another couple of months. So it looks worse because you've got 4 injuries already. So when they come back, we'll probably be a bit stronger. But that's the point we've got to fish in it. And I know it's boring. Most of the fans say, we want the best players. You've got to take a risk on Andre Green. You've got to take a risk on a Blackett. And if one out of the 3 pay off, you're probably in a really good position.
Yeah, you'd want 22 proven championship players. that might be a bit difficult. Listen, Matt, thanks so much for your time. Love your stuff on New York Talk. So thanks for joining us, and speak to you soon, mate.
Anytime. Cheers, boys.
Cheers, Matt. Well, my next guest is another Blue Nose, Josh Clarke, celebrating quite a good start to the season, mate. We're pretty happy with that.
Definitely, mate. I couldn't be happier. I didn't expect this kind of start. I expected a couple of draws, losses, but the team togetherness is amazing. It's what I'd hoped John could cultivate with his boys or his picks, or at least his influence on the team. So yeah, I'm over the moon. Jay Stansfield is a sign and a half. I just wish we'd got a obligation to put him, really. That was the only negative with that deal. But you know, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. We've just got to live in the enjoyment. And if you're a Blues fan, you've got nothing to worry about and nothing to moan about, which is mental for the first time in 12 years.
I tell you what I love about Jay Stansfield, Josh. I'm glad you mentioned him because I just love the fact that he's quick, so agile, and just runs in behind all the time. And for a Blues fan, I think we've just kind of been sitting almost, maybe cringing is the wrong word, but kind of just sitting a bit tense because it's like, do you remember those seasons under Karanka where it's like the ball would go forward and we'd have Scott Hogan at the top of the pitch or Lukas Jukovic, and neither of them really had that pace to stretch the lines and worry defenders that way. And since Che Adams left, really, we've not had that. So that's a 4-year period of just having no real sort of spark at the top end of the pitch. Now we've got it.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back as far as Cottrell. I questioned football. I generally questioned, why do I keep on going? And then we had Jude Bellingham, and that gave me a fire. I mean, I'm 33 now, and watching a 17-year-old play football shouldn't give you the love for the game again. It made me feel like when I was a kid, I was obsessed with David Beckham. Like anyone will tell you, I tried to play like him. I was obsessed with him. Even though being a Blues fan, I had a Man U top with Beckham on the back. He was my idol. And then when Bellingham come, I'm thinking, I don't want to be adopted by Beckham anymore. I want to adopt Bellingham. I love that boy. Like, he made me feel things as a Blues fan that it's so low-hanging fruit. It's ridiculous. And then what we see now, I'm like, I don't have anything to moan about. And before, I would question my own sanity because I can see what is wrong with this club. I can see what these experienced players and coaches are doing, like especially Karanka with his Real Madrid background. The decision-making he was making with, let's be honest, limited players, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. You can't play one-touch football with players that need 3 touches to control the ball. It just doesn't work. You can't expect a Nova to be a Lamborghini. You need to put the facilities in there, and unfortunately, some things just don't work. And Adam Clayton in the midfield didn't work. Jukovic running doesn't work. But ironically now, Duke is used how he should be, as an impact sub. Give him 10 minutes to do what he can do, because that's what he can last for now. He can last for 10 minutes. So it's amazing, and it's round pegs, round holes. It's just, it's making football simple again, and that's what's enjoyable, because we don't have anything to moan about, and it's an amazing feeling.
Certainly is. Ollie, what do you make of Blues' resurgence under John Eustace, and I suppose especially the hope around the club under new ownership?
That's it for me. I honestly, listening to that, just delighted for a fan base that really felt like they needed it. You know, we've talked so often, and you know, since I've started doing this kind of thing, we've done predictions and we've talked about always Birmingham is the crisis. Oh, Birmingham are going to be the crisis this year. They'll probably have a points deduction. Maybe they'll go down. A new season, they'll probably have a points deduction. They might get relegated. And now this season, there's all of that excitement. You know, you get the entire change off the field that's come in. I know, obviously, there are parts of it where you think, you know, is it just being done? You know, like Tom Brady, for example, he's here and he gets a lot of the media attention. But what it's done to transform the feeling of the fans is just massive. And I don't think you can underestimate how far a club can ride that kind of wave. Like, it really does make such a difference. And everything on the pitch just feeds out of all of that positive messaging. I look at the team and I'm looking at players now where if you go through just the spine of the team, there's a player that you go and you think, oh, he's a player. And suddenly you're looking at Ruddy in net, Sanderson, Bielik, Stansfield, and all the way through the club, drama. And you just think, hello, there's something cooking here. And it's really great to see. And I think of the clubs that, you know, we cover and that we're looking at a lot, Birmingham are one of the ones that most deserve it, because it just feels as though it's been such a long time coming. You know, I said that, you have seen your team win a cup. So, you know, I'll not get my violin out for too long. But yeah, I'm delighted. And just listening to what you were saying there, yeah, really excited for you this season, because I think that could be really great.
Josh, has the start to the season changed your thinking on what this season's about? Because for me, it's still very much on making sure we make progress from last season's 17th place finish and possibly getting into the top half and maybe building a team that can challenge in future seasons.
I still think 10th to 15th is a good barometer to expect. I think if we'd got a striker in, I think that had to extend it and we had to go top 10 minimum. But we haven't got the final piece of the puzzle. We probably could have got away with not getting maybe one or two defenders, but going to get, say, a Tom Cannon on a loan maybe would have potentially extended that. But you're only as good as your strikers, and we are still lacking in that number 9. We haven't got that player we can hang our hat on and go 10, 15, pretty much guaranteed. With Hogan, he's so up and down, and his confidence is, let's be honest, it's shot. And how can you not have confidence in this Birmingham setup? Everybody should be buzzing to be there. Everyone's got a new lease of life. You've got big owners literally dangling money at the club. If that's not going to get you off your backside, you're done in the game. And Hogan, unfortunately, is the wrong side of 30. He sat on a big contract for a number of years when Blues had no expectation. Now he's got to start working. Why? He's got 6 months, really, to put himself in the shop window. So I think if you'd taken him out of the firing line and used him a bit like Duke, but had someone in the same sort of mindset and mentality of a Tom Cannon, another Jay Stansfield, that then elevates the team, and they go, right, we've got a battering ram up front who wants to score goals, who's determined to fight for every little thing. We just don't have that little bit extra up front. And if we did, that could have extended us. But I would be happy with 10 to 15th at the moment. If January comes and we do spend again and we get that big player that we can kind of hang our hat on, then it has to change. But I think for now, 10 to 15 is absolutely fine.
So
yeah, for sure. Go on, Oli.
No, that sounds sensible to me. And I think it's really great to hear as well that, amongst the excitement, there's still that realism. Because for me, one of the things that can always be a problem, I said before that the positive fan base can really drag a club and really make a difference. But also, if you start well and you have all this positivity, that can change expectations. And I think one of the things I was just going to come on to and ask you your thoughts is obviously on the manager, on Eustace, because he's been outstanding for me from an outsider. I think he's done an unbelievable job. I thought last season, in the circumstances he was sort of dealt, just fantastic, his role. And so I think that's for me the key bit, keeping the expectations manageable so that, say if it is 15th, that Eustace isn't taking any blame or having any words about, oh, we got so excited, now we're going to blame it on somebody when it goes wrong. So I'd really like to hear that. But thoughts on Eustace? How do you think he's doing? Do you think he's future of the club?
For me, don't mess with it. You haven't this is the way he needs to be judged. Because last season, he had nothing. He had absolutely nothing. He was trying to do a lot with players that probably weren't at the level. And he still had rotation. He's still not brought in many people. When you think of the players we've lost, we haven't got massive depth, but we've got better depth than we had 18 months ago, 2 years ago. So there's an expectation that he's got to start delivering. But so far, so good. Me, I don't want to change too quickly. We've had too much change. We've had too many name changes above the door. Let's just keep it flat. Let's keep it concise. And let's, these new owners want to be a part of our family. And our family at the moment is John Eustace. So let's help him. Let's give him the tools that he wants. They've clearly done that in the market. You now need to give him time. We did this with Redknapp, a completely different setup ownership-wise. We kind of let him spend with governance from agents and then sacked him because of all the players that we bought in were injury-prone. We've got the same again. I keep on saying this to my mates, we wouldn't have got these players if they weren't injury prone. So you've got to give John time to work with his medical team, get the squad as strong as possible, and then judge him. That might take till December. If we don't see Tyler Roberts playing with Dembele, with Stansfield, with Miyoshi, with Anderson, I mean, I'm listing off names now. That's not normally for Blues. We normally have one or two. And then you're dropping Duke in there as your super sub. He's got a lot of options now, so there's not a lot of excuses you can use from October. You've got to give him that time to get his team fit. And if we suddenly come back from the Inters and we are 5-6 games on the bounce losing, he's going to go. It's as simple as that, because these lot haven't got finances to hold him in a job, which probably happened last season, where we couldn't afford to sack him because we had no money.
I do think so, Josh. I do think it's way too early to even talk. I sort of know what you're saying in the sense that the expectations have risen, but I'm really excited about what John Eustace is doing. I think he did a good job in difficult circumstances last season. I'm delighted with the start that we've had. Yeah. And I think it's definitely, even if we do have a bad run, which is kind of par for the course, I think we've got to get behind him, pretty much reiterating what you said at the beginning. Yeah,
I think fans across the board would, but unfortunately with the world of football now, we think about things that aren't really fans' input. I've seen listen to Sky Sports News and other podcasts where they talk about spends for clubs like it's our money. It's not. Our money's gone the moment we've bought a season ticket. So trying to think about what the owners think is different. As fans, does he make me feel happy being the manager? Yeah. Do I back him? Yeah. Do I believe that he wants to be a success for us? Yeah. Do I believe he's a Blues fan? No, I don't care. I want results on the pitch. I don't care if my manager is a fan of my club. I just want him to do results. And let's be honest, the players play for him. He gives everyone a clap at the end of the game. The fans like him. Why break something that isn't broken? Like, just leave it alone and revisit when we need to. If that revisit is in January, and because you've done so well, they'll give him a bit more to spend. Fantastic. If it's not, then revisit it when he needs to. But at the moment, just keep as it is. Let him work. As you say, we're cooking. Let him cook.
Absolutely, yeah. He's clearly an excellent coach. I want to, on that topic of stability, Josh, I want to bring in another point that sort of feeds into that, which is the defensive consistency. Because apart from Ethan Laird getting injured at Bristol City, which prompted the loan signing of, or was it a permanent actually from Leeds?
It's loan with a kind of offer contract at the end, isn't it? It's kind of, I like it. Whatever it is, it's a good deal. So it makes a change for us.
For sure. So Cody Dramé, Dion Sanderson, Kevin Long, and Lee Buchanan. That back four doesn't seem to have changed, or it's only changed once in a whole first sort of 6 weeks of the season. So if we can keep that consistency, because I can remember Blues sides where the defence hadn't stayed together at all, or no area of the team had stayed together because there was always injuries breaking everything up and suspensions and things like that. But hopefully you can get a real settled back four now.
I think that's, as I said before, you're only as good as your strikers, but you only are able to be judging your strikers if your defence can do their job. And we are now, as a fan base, looking at Hogan because defenders are doing their job. You don't get spoken about if you're doing your job because they're keeping the ball out the net. I saw Ruddy getting some criticism for the free kick that went in against Plymouth. He deserved it. He's a good player. He hasn't made a mistake. It's the first time he's made a mistake. He should have done better. It needs to be called out. But the difference now with Blues is it's called out and it's moved on. Before it'd be called out and it's again and another day and another day. And it's the constant lambasting of players because it's not at the level. That's just, you've made a mistake, but we keep going. You keep on looking at stats that are put out by other Twitter accounts. Blues players are in them stats. Leaf and Laird won a defender of the month. He's been injured for 2 games. Like, it's Dembele's at the top level with stats and he's been out for a couple of games. So this is where Blues need to, it's almost not the players and the manager, it's the medical team have to step up. We've got to get these players that are a little bit more injury-prone than we're used to in the right training, in the right programs to eliminate this because we need these players in the team more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Josh, great start for the Blues. I think we can be really happy with that and hopefully see you again soon, mate.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, lads.
Yeah, keep right on, mate.
Keep right on.
Delighted to be bringing my next guest, Ant Northgraves, who's a Hull City supporter. Great to have you back on the show, Ant. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, Gabe. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well. I imagine you're buzzing after that 1-0 victory at Leicester. You sent me the link to Rossini's sort of post-match team talk, and it was really quite stirring. So, what a great time to be a City fan right now.
It is, because I think it was really important, especially after the first 2 games, where obviously we lost at Norwich and then a really, really bad performance in the Cup against Doncaster. And, fans were starting to think, has something gone wrong here? Is the changing system not working kind of thing? And is this going to be a season again of where we start with such optimism, but it just teeters off and ends up being nothing? But, you look as a fan for the response to performances like that, and I think we've definitely had it. 4 games unbeaten now since the Norwich loss, obviously, and like we say, we were 6th place into the international break, and we've played Norwich, we've played Leicester, we've played Blackburn. We've played decent sides in the first 5 games of the season, so signs are promising. New signings still to add to the squad too, and it just looks like it's starting to click.
Absolutely. Impressed, Oli?
Yeah, a bit. I mean, we talked about this at the start of the season where, I was saying I think Ant's quite bullish. I know you, Gab, were very bullish sort of in predicting them to try and go for the playoffs. You've been really reassured by the business. And I'd wanted to see a little bit more. I thought, you know what? I want to see more from Hull. I want to actually see this play out because obviously towards the back end of last season, they'd had good runs, then they'd had middling runs. It's a really positive start. I think that win as well against Leicester is almost like throwing down the statement that says, look, we are actually coming to play this season and we're not just making up the numbers or just going to sit and have a comfortable mid-table. We want to try and aim before that. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Obviously, it's about continuing momentum. Like I said, there was a run last season where there's a really good run, I think, after the World Cup that then petered out and sort of was again middling by the end of the season with injuries and other problems. So tentatively, very impressed so far. I think it's been a really good start.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think Ant, Hull have shown the ability to win games in different ways? Where we can talk about Hull in terms of the build-up shape you've got. I think it's something like a 3-2-5 that you've got, where Liam Coyle goes really high up on the pitch, and you can build play sort of quite patiently. And yet you've also shown the resilience to get that. Maybe a smash and grab might do you a bit of a disservice, but certainly it was a very dogged performance at Leicester. You seem to be able to win games in different ways.
Yeah, and that's going to be important because, some of the criticisms we've had in the past or, seasons gone by, Grant McCann, Shota Arveladze, definitely, it's the criticism of the stubbornness and the rigidity of playing this certain way, even if it's not working. And Rosini's already showed that he's going to change it if we need to change it, depending on the opposition, depending on fitness levels, probably squad numbers. He's showing a tactical range that, as a fan, you want to see that proactive nature. And like you say, in games where we've got opposites, Sheffield Wednesday, we absolutely dominated and ran away 4-2 winners. And that scoreline was perhaps still a bit flattering towards Wednesday, that game. And then you've got the win at Leicester where, we massively under the cosh against a team full of, Premier League talent players and managed to stick on and get our first clean sheet of the season. So, the team are working for each other. You can see that. There's definitely different ways that the team can play. There's different, I think we've sort of littered the squad with very versatile players. So if we need to change the system, we can do. But yeah, no, it's very positive because, like you say, the games we have played, we've seen different sides of City pretty much all throughout. I mean, the Blackburn game, when they went down to 10 men, we had to find a way to try and win that game after going 1-0 down. So we have seen a lot of different sides to the team, and I think that's just a positive going forwards because it means that we can, try and match anything that comes our way in this league.
I think for me, one of those changes, obviously, that we saw at the weekend that I think has been really quite well received was Delap sort of moving onto the wing. Obviously, it started through the centre. We've then seen a little bit of a shift in his positioning. Do you see that as being sort of a longer term switch? Was he a lot sort of more effective in that role? How do you think that's going to play out? Or do you think we'll just see a rotation where it's going to be difficult to fully know what it's going to look like because you will continue changing?
I just think it was purely, I think he put him out, he did play him out wide right in pre-season occasionally, but I think he was trying to fit 4 strikers in the squad in various games to try and make that happen kind of thing and get minutes under people's belts. But I think against Leicester, it was purely a tactical choice based on the fact that Tufan was injured. Because obviously Tufan will be playing through the middle if he was playing. I think Connolly is probably best used as the striker through the middle because he can press better. Delap has shown that he's freakishly fast for how tall he is. He's very strong. He's very direct. And he really did give Callum Doyle an absolute nightmare for 90 minutes at the King Power. So I think it's probably given him a bit of a decision to make in future games, because if you want to have, let's say, Delap, Connolly and Tufan on the pitch at the same time, then why can't you? Because you can play Delap out right hand side. So it's probably a massive positive for Rosini to see him put that kind of performance in out wide. But we also know what he can do holding up the ball and turning defenders like he was previously through the middle. So, yeah, again, comes down to that versatility in the squad.
Yeah, no, that theme of versatility, I think, is so helpful. And, you got Aaron Connolly bringing the pace if you want him down the middle. And I love that. I think it's one thing having versatility, but also I think it's great that Liam Rosini can kind of recognise it and show that adaptability. Who have been the key players for Hull so far this season, would you say? I imagine you're going to go to Jean-Michel Seri and Regan Slater.
Yeah, Slater's your usual 7 out of 10 every week, despite not getting the goals or assists that I think he's chasing this season. But we are playing him, I think, deeper than we were last season. He's playing alongside Seri because we've got like kind of we go basically to I don't know what formation we play when we're on the ball, but we basically got 4 or 5 attackers in the box already, so it's enough. So Slater has to sit back. But no, Seri's been very good. He was great against Leicester. I think Alfie Jones is probably one of our most underrated players at the minute. He's been fantastic every week. He was phenomenal against Leicester. He had Ian Acho basically picking off scraps all game. Louis Coyle has been fantastic, and it's important as well because we've got Cyrus Christie coming back to full fitness, who's going to want to be back in that starting lineup. But Coyle, since the back end of last season, has just been great, consistent every week, plays his heart out. You know, you always get 110% with Coyle, but your question marks is always on, can he give you the same offensively as what Cyrus Christie does?
What a lovely dilemma that is to have, Ant. Like, managers dream, that kind of thing.
This is the thing. I mean, last season we really struggled for squad depth. That was the Achilles heel, and that's what really hindered. Like Oli said earlier, that run that we had was when we had players available. When we lost those players to injury, we lost our momentum. And this season now we've got, you know, fingers crossed we don't get 3 or 4 injuries over in the international period, but we've got players available and that we can pick from. And this competition for places is driving them to play better. And I think Rosinia demands such a high standard from the starting 11 that if you're going to try and force your way back into the starting lineup, if you're on the bench, then you're going to have to train hard and show that you really want it, which is, as you say, hand in hand going in. Everybody's now raising the game, and it's only going to, you know, reflect as performances on the pitch. So yeah, players like Louis Coyle that are keeping out Cyrus Christie from the squad, it just shows that, you know, we've got a team that's willing to work hard and try and nail down the place. So it's only going to be good news for us as the season goes on.
Yeah, and that sounds really positive in terms of that added depth, because like you say, I think that's going to be really crucial, because when the injuries come, because they come for everybody, it's really good to hear that you'll have that. And so we focused a lot on the positives, everything that's going well. It's been a fantastic start. I'm looking at the 11, right? Looking at the starting 11 from the game against Leicester, and I can't pick it out. And so I'm going to ask you as a whole fan, what is the weakness of the team? Where do you think that if problems come, where does it come? Because I'm looking at it, I'm seeing a really strong midfield. I'm seeing strikers who are well set to play in the style that Hull are trying to play. You know, I've given my thoughts that Aaron Connolly's not for me, but I understand that he does a really good job for Hull in the way that he's trying to play. We've just gone through the defence and suddenly we're saying, actually, we've got some players in here. You know, everybody knows how much I like Greaves at the back. So where's the gap? What should I know that I don't know that I'm missing here? What's the gap in this 11?
I think in terms of the squad itself, it's really strong. It's really exciting. And when you look at it on paper, it's a team definitely capable of at least challenging for the top 6 this season. But as you say, if I'm going to find a weakness from this season, we've perhaps not been as good at keeping the ball out of our net as we was last season, which was obviously the big positive of Rosinia's reign last season, because we weren't scoring goals, so we had to stop conceding them in order to get something from games. Whereas this season, we scored in every single game, but we've only just had our first clean sheet. So we've kind of maybe sacrificed that bit of defensive solidity to play a bit more on the front foot and score goals, which is what we have been doing. But like I say, if we can put in performances like that against Leicester and still get those clean sheets, then we're on to a winner. But it's concerning sometimes that in games we tend to have large periods of the game where we lose momentum. We'll start well, and then, for example, for the next 30 minutes, perhaps be the worst side of the two for quite a period of time, and it just invites pressure. And you know, you need to control games better in the Championship over 90 minutes. Your game management's got to be good. Maybe the mentality and you're going to get.
Well, yeah, you've kind of preempted my question, really, in terms of, can you put a finger on why you've not quite been able to maybe sustain that pressure sometimes when you have started well? I suppose it's partly just the Championship, and sometimes teams are going to have spells, aren't they? So
yeah, and it is a new kind of system that he's using this year as he was last season. Players are in new roles, like we say. Slater's probably doing a different role than he was last season, and the shape's slightly different, both defensively and offensively. And I think the two in midfield, despite as good as Seri's actually being defensively, which is the biggest question mark over him sometimes, it is quite easy to I mean, if you watch the game against Norwich, they really were running circles around our midfield. I think if you can get a player in that sort of number 10 role in between our midfield and defence, it does cause us a lot of problems.
Do you think, sorry, just to jump in there, Ant, do you think there's a world in which you actually move Adama Traore back for it? Because he played out wide quite a lot this season. Is there a world in which he moves into a midfield role and he actually becomes a 3 again?
I think to fit him in the team, you have to then go back to the system we were playing last season. if you want him in the middle. But at the moment, with the system he wants to play and the players we've signed, that's clearly not the aim, because we've just brought in quite a few wingers. We've got now an abundance of wingers, whereas last season we had hardly any.
Sure.
He wants to play this 4-4-2, and I think with Adama, he's played out wide because he's had to, because of injury and players not being signed on time, kind of thing. And he's just nowhere near as effective out there. And I think if you play him in the middle, you're not going to play him above. You'd have to play him above Seri, and he's not going to give you the same defensive aspects.
You don't think a 4-3-3 could work with this squad?
I think it could. I just don't think he will. I think the whole point of the system that he's playing now is to get us to score goals. And I think the 4-3-3 makes us solid, as he showed last season. But this season, the fluidity of the front line has been so crucial. And like we've been playing, I mean, he'll say on paper they put it down as a 4-4-2, and you'll have Delap alongside Tufan, who they'll change it about, and then. But when you watch us on the ball, and then now we've got Scott Twine there, and you're going to add Jaden Philogene into this mix, and when they go up there and Louis Coyle presses on, and then you've got Vinagre, who had a really good game against Leicester, who's going to do the same. We're just going to have so many players in the opposition half. I just don't know. We've got so many players you want to put on the pitch, but you can only field 11. And I feel like with Adama this season, you'd probably have to either play him in the role Tufan's been playing as that sort of second striker, or you'd perhaps have to play him as the conductor in Seri's role. So Adama's a really interesting one this season, because I thought he was great towards the end of last season. I was really excited for him this year, but I feel like he might be
to have a massive season.
Yeah, no, I was, and then I think he might be a victim of the system, unfortunately. But I definitely do think that he can still, if he has to play out wide, he is good at cutting in and creating that space, and he still shows his class in possession with those little passes and things. So he will have a role to play. I just don't think he'll be as effective in this system as he was last year.
Sure. How are you feeling in terms of Hull City's chances of challenging for the playoffs then? Are you feeling more confident than you were before the start of the season, or about the same?
I feel like I'm definitely feeling more confident now the transfer window's shut. We kept hold of Jacob Greaves. We've added some real quality. I think Scott Twine, Jaden Philogene are two of the best signings that we've made in a long time. And then you've got excitement. You've got young players in, players with points to prove, like Jason Aquila. You've got Ruben Vinagre, who's not played that much in the last few years, so he's going to want to get back to playing regularly. And Liam Delap, who looks like, he's not the player that Stoke and Preston fans told us he is at all. He's been fantastic. So, I think when you take into account the signings, how level-headed and clever and confident Rosenior is in the system and the identity, and it does all feel like we're pulling in the same way, and I do think that this season will be a definitely a positive one, and if we can keep grinding out results like we are, then there's absolutely no reason why we can't be at least a top 10 side, and I do still believe that.
You weakening on your stance, Ollie, with Hull?
Weakening. I think they're better than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
And the signings some of them are exceptional. I mean, I love Philogene. I think he's going to be really exciting. I don't know where he fits in that team, but I think
he'll play out wide. I think he'll play out right instead of Adama.
Yeah, makes sense. And obviously, Scott Twine was one of the players I was most excited to watch in the Championship last year. Struggled with his injury, obviously, wasn't able to make the impact we thought, but I do think he'll have a big impact as well. So I'm coming more around to your side, Gav. I think they're definitely playoff contenders. I'm not 100% there to say they will be in it, but very, very much in that conversation now.
Yeah, from my point of view, even though I was and am very much pro Hull, and I am going to say I think they'll get top 6. What I'd also say is that I would like to see them just fine tune that balance a little bit so that the Slater and Seri don't get overrun, because I do think that could be an important thing that maybe some teams might find a way of exploiting when they're not maybe playing that sort of deeper deeper game that they did at Leicester and pulled that off so well. So a few little targets there for Hull. I wanted to sort of move it on to a wider championship chat then. Ollie, coming to you first on this. I suppose that the interesting thing is that we've got Preston and Ipswich in the top two. We've got my team Birmingham fourth. We've got Hull sixth, when a lot of people weren't sure about them, and even Norwich weren't necessarily a popular pick. So the only teams that were commonly expected to really challenge for promotion this season and are in the top six are Leicester. Is it a case of just giving it another 5 games to see how things level out, really, before making drawing too many conclusions?
I think it'll settle another 5 games, and I think it'll really tell us about the level that we are looking at. We talked about Leicester here last week, and I said at the time, I think the results are more convincing than the performances. They were probably due one going against them, and obviously they had that with the game against Hull. And so I think we will see it settle down, but maybe this season isn't quite as cut and dried as a lot of people thought. We thought that big established teams coming down from the Premier League in Leicester, in Southampton, to an extent in Leeds, that they would be well set to just turn up, turn it back around. And they're very much not having it that way at all in the start of the season. I am really shocked. I thought that Ipswich would start pretty well. I think similar to what we said earlier today, I think it was about Plymouth. I think they will cool off. Don't think they're going to be top 2 all season, but it just shows you what an impact the momentum can have. And it's massive. It means that you can start to think about changing your expectations for the season. Same for Preston. There's only 2 teams in the league that are still unbeaten, Preston and Birmingham. And if you'd have said that to me, 6 weeks ago, I'd have blown my mind. I would be like, I want what you're smoking, because there's no way that happens. And so, yeah, I think 5 more games before we're really able to properly assess the level teams are at. But it certainly looks as though the teams coming down are nowhere near as strong as maybe we all expected.
Ant, would you say Norwich are the best side Hull have faced so far?
Yeah, definitely. I think we were quite harsh on our performance when you look at it with hindsight. So on the day, they could have been 5 or 6 goals up at half time. You worried, thinking that we're just playing really badly, and we were 2 minutes away from getting a point from there, which, looking back, would have been a really good result. And they've just looked like they're a side that just plays with such high intensity, so forwardly aggressive, that they're just going to score a shed ton of goals this season. I do think the injury to Sargent might be a bit of a worry for them, but that Rose, phenomenal player. I do think that maybe this run of form might dip down a bit, and he'll just settle into being not a goal scoring midfielder every single game like he currently is, or something like that. But he is some talent, and I do think that Wagner's got that. He's looked at the squad and gone, right, what's the strength of this squad? Because last season just wasn't good enough. What can we do? There's goals in this team. Right, let's just go for it then. And every game's just going to be hell for leather. It was a bad result against Rotherham. I think that might have given him a bit of a reality check. But I'm confident that Norwich are going to be a side that's going to be up there in the top 6 this season. And from the performances I've seen, that 4-4 against Southampton was just exhilarating, wasn't it? It's going to be one of them. They're going to be the entertainment team of the league, aren't they? So, no, they've definitely surprised me, because I thought they'd be mid-table based on last season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've probably just had absolutely brutal pre-season training, just all on the fitness, and lots of cross-country running and stuff to get them nice and fit, and that seems to be sort of paying off, as well as some good passages of play as well. And the emergence of Johnny Rowe, I think, is a great point. Ollie, I do want to sort of mention Southampton, because they actually had a 5-0 drubbing at Sunderland at the weekend. We actually had Martin Sanders, a fantastic Southampton expert, on the show last week, and my last question to him after we talked about the really good football Southampton are playing and the various positives, you do worry about Southampton defensively, especially when crosses come into the box. And I suppose that was kind of borne out on Saturday when they were thrashed 5-0 at the Stadium of Light. Is that the thing that's going to stand between Southampton and promotion this season if Russ Martin can't figure out the solutions?
Oh, 100%. 100%. We know, we look at their squad and everybody sees what they've got going forward. They managed to keep hold of some of their players. I think that's a real positivity for them. I think they will be good, and I think they were going to be entertaining as well. I know that the Russell Martin style isn't for everybody, but I do think that with this Southampton team and the talent that they've got up front, it will be entertaining. But defensively, that's the risk. You've said and highlighted risks about balls coming into the box. Can they deal with that aerial threat that they're going to come up against a lot of teams in the division? I also question, are their ball-playing defenders good enough to not make mistakes that cost you on a fairly regular
For
basis?
example, is Mason Holgate the defender that you'd want in a team that has 80% possession all the time? Or Bednarek? Are they necessarily...
And I'm not taking that. That's not for me. I think it's a shame they couldn't get one of the transfers they wanted. Obviously, I know there was real interest in Wood from Swansea. Maybe that makes a difference. Maybe it gives them a little bit more in terms of their control. But for me, there's so many question marks through that defence. I think that combined with, so I think you said it, Gab, actually, at the start of the season on our prediction show, you said, question mark on Russell Martin. Has he ever delivered a full season in a promotion battle and come out of it with a real success story? And the answer is no. And actually, does that, combined with the risks they've got in defence, hold them back? Yeah, I think if I was to change one of my predictions from the start of the season, I would not have Southampton second anymore.
Yeah, I feel like there's too many question marks to say they're going to finish top two. I probably would say, though, that I've also seen them play some really good controlled football, and I've liked much of what they've had to offer. And I do think that they're going to have sort of some quite extreme highs and some extreme lows. And I feel like how it levels out will probably be around the top 6 area, but I don't think they're going to have the consistency for the top 2. And in terms of teams that we're worried about, there's slow starters in Middlesbrough, who I'm quite happy to say they'll all get better and improve because they've got too much quality not to. But Middlesbrough, Swansea, and maybe to an extent Watford are the underachievers so far.
Yeah, I mean, you Watford had similar to Norwich, had a poor season last season, given that they'd just come down from the Prem. But I think that they're even worse this season. I mean, they had their opening game of the season against QPR was thinking, is that just a case of Gareth Ainsworth suffering from the poor form of last season?
QPR, by the way, sorry, just to interrupt, QPR are actually above Watford in the table now.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean,
how does that work?
To me, it's just the Watford, the whole Watford situation's just been going on a slope for quite a while, hasn't it? And I think it's coming to fruition at the minute. It was where there's something needs to change in the way that club's run. The transfer policy, it's not looking good from this season. Like you say, I think Middlesbrough definitely will pick up. I mean, they were in a similar position last season. Look where they finished. You're bound to have that kind of effect when you lose Chuba Akpom, Cameron Archer, Giles. All these players are absolutely crucial to the way they played. And then Swansea was an interesting one because I honestly thought Swansea would start like house on fire and be a team that challenged the top 6. But it's another case, I think, of they lost the manager and it's that transition period, similar to like we're saying about the teams coming down, Southampton, Leicester. They've got to get used to this new. The new manager, the new system, the new players. Losing, Pirro is going to hurt them a lot. Jerry Yates, though, is a very good signing. I do think Swansea will, again, like Middlesbrough, will turn it around and end up back in the top 10 at least. But no, they're definitely underachievers so far.
Yeah, and well, to both of you, I suppose we talked about Rotherham's situation earlier and how we had Matt Lax from New York Talk podcast on the show earlier, and we were talking about a lot of positives at Rotherham. But if we're kind of making the assumption that Middlesbrough and Swansea are going to improve, and Watford, I would even say, performance-wise, I think they've probably been better than their results, and they've maybe missed that clinical edge. Probably the same for Middlesbrough as well. I just wonder who are the teams that Rotherham will feel like they can catch. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday, I think, are a given, although they got a good point at Leeds at the weekend. You've got Huddersfield there, Cardiff and QPR, I suppose. Ollie, they would be the teams that Rotherham might feel they can try and catch.
Yeah, 100%. I completely echo your thoughts as well. Borough, Swansea, they'll get themselves out of trouble, and I think they'll be fine. Watford, I think they've actually had low-key a really, really difficult run of games as well to start the season. So I think Watford are going to be absolutely fine. And I actually, I had them in the playoffs when I was doing my predictions. I'm not 100% against the idea that they're going to be challenging. I do think they'll be fine. Who Rotherham finish above is really difficult. I'm not willing to say Sheffield Wednesday because I will jinx it, and I don't want to do that. So I think Wednesday will be fine. Then you've got Huddersfield. You've got to be looking at Cardiff, QPR, and I don't know who else is going to be down there. You look at the league table and how it's currently balanced out, and I don't see who the contenders are down there. I'm looking at the teams that are, say, 17th and below: QPR, Rotherham, Cardiff, Huddersfield, the other team. And then the other teams, we're saying that we're really confident will get out there. I don't see teams above that getting dragged in because there's some really strong teams above them as well. So I think it's 3 from 5 already. So I just don't see who else gets dragged in unless they really do have a terrible season that is much worse than we're willing to predict.
Very interesting. I think I've got a good. I feel like Plymouth instinctively. You'd say Plymouth could come into that equation if they maybe drop off a little bit, but I'm still feel pretty confident they'll stay up. So I kind of agree with you a little bit, to be honest. It feels ridiculous to say that.
It's mad.
I know. But I'm saying what your argument is ridiculous, but also I agree with you. That's just simplify things.
That's my style.
We're looking at it from our perspective. We're looking at it from our perspective, though, aren't we, as fans?
Yes,
whereas, your original question was, who are Rotherham going to look at in order to say we could probably catch them and stay up? They will have identified Plymouth as a team that they think will fall off and be a side that they can catch. Yeah, I like you, Gav. I think they'll end up staying up. I think they'll be fine. I think their start's been great as well. But Rotherham will identify teams like Plymouth, Huddersfield, Cardiff. They will think we've just got to hope that they drop off and we start picking up results, and they're the teams that we catch.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, listen, gents, it's been such a pleasure to join you on the Championship podcast. Obviously, no Championship action next week, so we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks to my co-host Oli, as always, from Sheff United Way. Thanks to Ant Northgraves from the excellent Hull and Back podcast. Sheff United Way is brilliant as well. I was
going to say, apparently Hull and Back's fantastic, but I'm United Way. My word.
I realised my error there. Thanks to all the guests we've had as well. This has been EFL Direct, the Championship podcast, and we'll see you again very soon.